Hey gang, this is Pamela Cushman with A Point of Balance. Today I'd like to talk to you about hugging. Yes, hugs. Depending on where you live or how you grew up, you may have a different view from hugging than I do. Do you know how you feel about hugs? I'm not sure this is a topic that gets discussed very often, so I thought it might be very interesting for us to take a look at it today. When I say the word hug, what comes to mind? Do you have a vision of your grandmother giving you a nice big warm hug? Or does something come to mind that's not that pleasant? Depending on your environment, your family, you may have very different feelings about hugging than I do. For me and my family, hugging was not something that we did. The only time we hugged was if something really tragic happened. In my work environment, having spent many of the years in the 80s and 90s in the work environment, that was a period where touching was definitely not part of what happened while you're at work. So greeting a coworker with a hug was not acceptable. You may be charged with sexual harassment. That still goes on today. So what are your feelings about hugging? Do you have different standards for different situations? You might hug an old friend that you haven't seen in years, but you wouldn't hug your boss. Or if you work in a healing profession, hugging might be more acceptable. So it really depends on your environment and how you have processed the connection to what a hug means. Have you ever noticed that there are the kind of hugs that when no words are spoken, two people can understand each other very clearly? You see this happen in a goodbye hug, or maybe even in a breakup hug. It's the kind of hug where no words are really needed. The love is felt, but both people know the relationship is done. Have you had that kind of hug? It's almost as if this hugging gives our hearts a chance to connect. I was taught that if you hug someone, hug them where your head goes to the right, so your heart is over their heart. Many of us are taught to hug and move to the left as we give our hug. Give it a try sometime and go heart to heart with somebody. Now, hugging is one of those things that there are some people, you might even call them huggy people. Everybody has a different boundary when it comes to hugging. But today I invite you just to think about what your boundaries are for hugging. Where did you get those boundaries? And what could shifting your view of hugging do for your life? There will always be people that are the extreme huggers and those that don't wish to be hugged. Both are correct. There is no right or wrong. But I want to invite you to think of hugging as another form of communication. So the next time you go to hug your partner goodbye or your child, take that extra moment and connect heart to heart with the person that you're hugging. Sending you a hug and lots of love.